Good morning, everyone. Hi. I've had the chance to say hi, Jim. Hi, Sabrina, to all of you. Hi, guys over there. We're going to start our Building and Operating Committee meeting. It's 9:02, and I'll call the meeting to order on this day of Thursday, August 24, 2023. Before we begin, please note this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to my colleagues and everyone joining us here in person, as well as those of you who are listening in on the phone. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting, and if you've not already done so, please let Dean in the back of the room or Justine on the call-in line know what items you would like to speak to today. Madam Secretary, please begin by calling the roll.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll start with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Conroy is absent. Director Park.
Present.
Director Rapp is absent. Director Thier.
Here.
Vice Chair Maston.
Here.
Chair Garbarino.
Here.
And President Terrio.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. Also in the room, you have Directors Giudice, Hernandez, and Rodoni. But you are, and Director Rabbit.
Ta-da!
You are now a committee of the whole. Thank you. In the room, we have staff, Dennis Mulligan,
Good morning.
Joe Wire,
Good morning.
Eva Barr-Furbush.
Present.
Thank you. Kim Manolius.
Good morning.
Madeline Chen's here in the back too. Thank you. Dave Rivera,
Good morning, President.
Mike Hoffman,
Present.
and Kelly Hopper.
Present.
And that rounds out everybody also in the room. Jennifer Minucci is also in the back, and John Everett is there too.
Cool. Okay. Welcome again. Thank you. And after our discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. We will begin with agenda item number 3, which is to approve actions relative to procurement and implementation of e-Builder construction project management software for the Golden Gate Suspension Bridge seismic retrofit project. The staff report again begins on page 3, and District Engineer Eva Bauer-Furbush is here to present the report. Please go ahead, Eva.
Chair Garbarino, members of the committee. Agenda item number 3, staff report, presents staff recommendation for the board to approve actions relative to procurement and customization of a construction management software called e-Builder for the Golden Gate Bridge Suspension Bridge seismic retrofit project, and for training of staff in the software specific project applications. The district is in process of procuring construction of the project using the construction manager general contractor procurement method. The implementation of the project will be in 2 phases. First one is called pre-construction phase, when we hire a contractor. They will serve as a consultant to the district, but this will require collaboration with many parties. So we will engage in exchange of information, documents, and discussions, and this will be between the district staff, FHWA and Caltrans, the construction manager, general contractor staff, design consultant, independent construction estimator and scheduler, project technical review panel, and other district consultants. We anticipate that because of large scale and complexity of the project, both during the pre-construction and construction phases, a large volume of documents will be prepared and exchanged to support effective flow of information among all involved parties and to record all aspects of the project implementation. It is anticipated that the project will generate thousands of documents that must not only be filed and tracked, but also shared among the members of the project team. To efficiently manage this large volume of project documents, a construction project management and document control software is needed. To satisfy the needs of the project, the software must have the ability to digitally store all documents in a safe environment, allow designated personnel to access the documents, facilitate efficient exchange of documents to support collaboration, be able to track historical changes to documents, including ensuring that the most recent versions of drawings and documents are readily available. Also, be able to track work progress and schedule. The software implementation must also include training of staff, excuse me, and have vendor support resources available. After investigating several software programs to determine which could meet these requirements, staff determined that eBuilder was the only software program that possessed the features necessary for this project. eBuilder has been used by many public agencies across the country to manage implementation of their capital projects and by consultants and contractors involved in those projects. eBuilder is a fully integrated cloud-based construction program management software for owners managing capital projects from planning stages through construction and operation. eBuilder connects all internal and external stakeholders to efficiently manage exchange of documents and communications among all of the project participants. The system is modular and entirely accessible and configurable via internet, making it a fast system to deploy. The scope of the eBuilder implementation services would include deployment of the eBuilder Essential Package software that consists of 10 modules and initial staff training. eBuilder is available through the General Services Administration Cooperative Purchasing Program that allows state and local governments to purchase IT equipment, software, and services. Staff determined that the eBuilder cost proposal is consistent with established GSA pricing and it's fair and reasonable. The cost proposal covers the software implementation fee in amount of $49,129 and license fees for 50 users for the first year in the amount of $59,033 with options to renew the licenses for years 2 through 5, as presented in the staff report, and with the total cost of $375,323. Staff recommends that the Building and Operating Committee recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the execution of contract number 2023-B54, Construction Project Management Software with eBuilder, Inc., in a total not to exceed amount of $375,323 to implement construction management software and provide licenses for up to 5 years and for 50 users. And the second part of the staff report, it relates to the fact that there is a need to customize the software modules so we can streamline the project management processes and procedures specifically for the project. And we also would like to establish administrative and access protocols to protect the electronic project management system from unauthorized use, access and use, and also to provide the up-to-date training of staff to assure proper utilization of the customized software modules as the project progresses. Staff has determined that engagement of the project design consultant, HDR Engineering, would provide for the most efficient and effective customization of the software to adjust it to the specific needs of the project management and for the staff training. The district has contracted with HDR Engineering to provide design services for the project. HDR is thoroughly familiar with the project and the project management processes and procedures used by the engineering department. HDR staff is also experienced in customization and use of the eBuilder software on other major transportation projects that HDR was retained for as a consultant by public agencies. Staff has negotiated a proposal with HDR, cost proposal with HDR for such services in amount not to exceed $399,637. Staff has found this cost proposal to be reasonable in terms of the consultant's budgeted labor hours to perform the requested scope of services and consistent with HDR's audited labor and overhead billing rates. Staff recommends that the Building and Operating Committee recommend that the Board of Directors authorize the execution of the 12th Amendment to Professional Services Agreement with HDR in the not-to-exceed amount of $399,637 for assistance with customization of the eBuilder software and for the ongoing staff training. HDR will be compensated for actual time expended and expenses incurred up to the not-to-exceed amount. Staff also recommends that a contingency for this amendment in the amount of $40,000 be established for any additional scope of services that may develop as work progresses. And finally, with regard to financing these efforts, the Suspension Bridge Seismic Retrofit project is included in the current fiscal year Bridge Division capital budget with a total project budget of $9,861,845. Sufficient funds are available in the project budget to finance the procurement in the amount of $108,162 of the eBuilder enterprise software implementation and 1-year license for 50 users, and to finance the 12th Amendment to the PSA with HDR in the not-to-exceed amount of $399,637 and for the contingency in the amount of $40,000 for this amendment. So I'll be happy to answer any questions the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Reba, for that phenomenal report. That was quite a bit of information to impart, and it's greatly appreciated. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, is it safe to assume that we can use eBuilder for other projects besides just the seismic retrofit? And if it is used for other projects, would we also need to contract out for customization to that specific project?
We may. So the situation right now is that we will pay for the, as you notice, we will pay for the software and training from the project budget. So right now, this is specifically, and that we can do it because it's specific for the seismic retrofit. But we intend to check, verify how this will go, and if it works for such complex project, definitely we would like to use it for all our engineering projects because for the sake of efficiency.
So there might be a need for more training,
Yes.
but not necessarily additional costs for the program itself if we use
That's
it on
right.
other projects.
So the thing is that every year we of course have to pay for the licenses. Right. But so this will be ongoing, and definitely there will be need for staff training because what happens, we will customize for the specific processes for this project, and we may need to make adjustment if we want to have a broader use for other projects. So we will need assistance. I hope that as we go, in the next few years, staff will be, well trained and probably will be able to carry on this customization in-house.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Holly.
Thank you so much. I wanted to make sure item number 3 only deals with the actual software. It does not deal with HDR.
It covers both. The staff recommendation for this item covers both. It's 2 part.
2 and 3.
It covers both 2 and 3, I mean, 3 and 4?
Oh, no, the agenda item number 4 is for the Corte Madera issue.
I understand. So, item number 3, I want to apologize. I did not realize that that also included HDR. So I do need to recuse myself from items 3 and items 4. I will not be voting or participating in the discussion.
Director, agenda item 4 doesn't involve HDR.
Yeah, I understand that, but it involves WRA, so it's thank you, thank you.
Okay, are there other directors that have any questions or comments at this time? Barb?
I'm just glad that there's actually a software out there. I can only imagine how many pieces of paper. And with that, I will move the item.
Second.
Great. Before we take our vote then, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no members of the public in the room. Christine, do you have any members of the public on your line who would like to speak on item 3?
We do not, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to vote on e-building construction project management software for the Golden Gate Suspension Bridge seismic project. And Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Thank you. We're starting with Director Conroy, who's absent. Director Dorsey is absent. Director Engardio is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Roseball.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Neston.
Aye.
Holton Peters is absent. Parr.
Aye.
Rabbit.
Aye.
Verdoni.
Aye.
Cefayu is absent. Snyder.
Aye.
Stephanie. Absent. Theodore is recusing herself. Second Vice President Hill is absent. First Vice President Cochran
Yes.
and President Serio.
Yes.
We have 11 ayes.
Wonderful. That motion passes, and we will now move on to item number 4 on our agenda, which is to approve actions relative to professional services agreement number 2014 FT13, Wetland Restoration Design and Permitting Support Services Project with WRA Inc. The staff report begins on page 11, and Ava will also be presenting this report. Go ahead.
So this staff report presents staff recommendations for the board to approve actions necessary to eradicate invasive species of pampas grass and harding grass at the district's own 72-acre parcel in Corte Madera. In early 2021, the district completed a construction project that restored 4 acres of marsh at that location. The marsh restoration fulfills a condition of a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit associated with the periodic maintenance dredging of the Larkspur Ferry Terminal berth and navigation channel, and a negotiated settlement associated with district ferry operations at Larkspur. The district has retained WRA, the marsh restoration design consultant, to perform multi-year post-construction monitoring of the restored marsh. 2 years of monitoring have been completed, and the restored marsh is performing well. However, last July, WRI informed the district that there are large populations of invasive non-native plants, particularly pampas and harding grasses, on the portion of the 72-acre parcel outside of the restored marsh. WRI has determined that the invasive plants are currently present over approximately 9 to 12 acres of the parcel. If these grasses are not removed, they may spread onto restored marsh. Engineering staff reviewed the site and concurred with WRA's assessment. In previous years, to keep pampas grass and harding grass from becoming a fire hazard or from creating areas where unauthorized, illegal, and nuisance activities could take place, the district managed the vegetation at the site by using goats to graze on the vegetation. Also, the district bridge division forces perform a manual weed control and cutting and grinding of the vegetation using rental mechanical equipment. However, these methods were not effective in stopping the plants from spreading throughout the parcel. If left untreated, the invasive plants will continue to expand within the parcel, threatening to spread onto the 4-acre marsh and potentially expanding into the neighboring baylands and surrounding open space areas. Engineering staff requested WRA to develop a plan for removing the invasive grasses present within the parcel, restoring the treated areas with native plants, and monitoring the restored areas to prevent the reestablishment of the invasive plants. WRA plan proposes to divide the site into 3 weed management areas, taking into consideration the environmental work windows related to the protected species in the area. These areas are shown on the map attached to the staff report. The proposed scope of work would involve work over several years. It will start in fall and of this year and the spring of the next year, when the consultant would trim all the tall plant fronds of the pampas grass and harding grass to prevent the seed disbursement. Then pampas grass would be removed each fall sequentially from each area, 1, 2, and 3, beginning in the fall this year, and will continue into the fall of 2025. And finally, the time to remove harding grass is in spring every year, and once again, beginning in spring next year, the consultant will eradicate the harding grass from these 3 management areas. So it will be 24, 25, and 26. And finally, there will be a need to follow up and monitor and remove any spreading that may happen with pampas grass or harding grass. Also, there is a need to revegetate areas where those invasive species were removed to prevent, basically, they come back. So it is proposed that native plants will be used to revegetate the areas. And finally, in year 2027 and 28, the consultant will further monitor the site to determine the success of this effort. Engineering staff and WRA provided requested, and WRA provided a cost proposal in the not-to-exceed amount of $579,985 for the scope of work described in the staff report. Staff has reviewed the cost proposal and determined that this not-to-exceed price is reasonable based on the scope of work, cost data for similar work, and cost comparison with the previous work at the site, including the cost of doing this effort with our own forces or hiring goats. The District Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Administrator has determined that WRA is certified as an SDE by the California Department of General Services. Staff recommends that the Building and Operating Committee recommend that the Board of Directors authorize the execution of the 6th Amendment to Professional Services Agreement with WRA in not to exceed amount of $579,985 for the invasive species removal and treatment, revegetation, and monitoring over the approximate 9 to 12 acres outside and adjacent to the marsh restoration area. WRA will be compensated for actual time expended and expenses incurred plus a fixed fee up to the authorized not to exceed amount. Staff also recommend that a contingency for this amendment be established in amount of $58,000 to provide for any additional or change work scope that may develop while work progresses. The Corte Madera Marsh Restoration Construction Project is included in the current fiscal year Federal Ferry Division capital budget in the amount of $3,040,000. And this is 100% district funded. The cost of the sixth amendment to the PSA with WRA and its contingency in the total amount of $637,985 is proposed to be financed by reallocating $472,500 from various previous budget items under which the project work has been completed to date, and by increasing the project budget by $165,485, which is proposed to be financed from the district reserves. And with this, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have for me.
Very much, Ava, for another excellent presentation. Are there any questions from my colleagues on this item or comments? Barb?
I'm sorry, I did read this one quite thoroughly and did some research. And the part I did research about, I did learn that WRA is an environmental consulting company, so I trust them. I don't know who they answer to, but I do notice that in here they put that they were going to use a herbicide when it got to the point that they couldn't control the pampas grass. Roundup is an herbicide, and Roundup is one of the few herbicides that can actually kill pampas grass. I don't know if we care about that. I personally do, because it's a carcinogen. But I just want that to be out there. Maybe that's something that you could report back to us if they actually had to use Roundup. It looks like it's in year 2, maybe year 3. But if they're worried about the mouse and the bird, Roundup doesn't help. Helps with the pampas
I'm
grass.
pretty sure that WRA will take all the precautions not to use this particular chemical, but I will have discussions with them.
Would you
and,
please, because
yes,
they're-
and I will bring the report.
That is one of the gorillacillin herbicides.
The project was designed to minimize the use and avoid it if possible.
Good.
But as a last resort, it may be necessary in the outer years in a very, very limited fashion. So I
What
think.
they all say, Dennis.
uh,
With all due respect, that's what they all say.
Ava will report back.
Thank you, I appreciate
Yeah.
I like the
Thank you.
idea of using the goats as well.
I do
We've done
too.
so, and I know the Raceway does.
Clearly,
too.
pampas grass
The
isn't
problem
good
with
goat
goats,
feed.
they don't like pampas grass.
Yeah, right.
Everything.
It's not their
They don't
favorite
eat the
food,
roots.
right?
Well,
And
we
I
had-
get that.
We had an issue with our goats eating the one and only in America Cadillac soft top of our next door neighbor. They're also like Houdinis. They can go almost anywhere, calls in the middle of the night from the CHP there in the fast lane. So just be careful with those goats. Okay, anyone else have a comment? Yes, Chris?
No, I mean, I just, you've been around for a while, but not that long. I'm still relatively new. And I didn't realize this 72 acres. Is there a way to get a little history on it? And I mean, sounds like another financial obligation to us. Are we tied into it forever? Or is it something?
I could do a very brief since the item's on the agenda. So when the district got in the ferry business a very, very long time ago, 50 years ago, and we developed the Larkspur Ferry Channel, we did an initial dredging episode to create the channel. And as part of that, we had certain environmental obligations. And so the district had to create a lot of habitat. And so we created what was known as the Moosie Marsh. So we basically created through eminent domain, the first, actually Hanson Bridget, kudos, the first time in California ever that a public agency condemned property for mitigation, environmental mitigation, was the Bridge District, represented by Hanson Bridget at the Moosie Marsh. And so we turned 450 acres over to State Fish and Game. We retained 72 acres for future dredging episodes as a disposal site to dispose dredged spoils. So the initial site did have dredge spoils disposed on it. This site did have dredge spoils disposed on, spoils disposed on it. The rules change over time though, so it hasn't been a source for dredge spoils, but we have certain obligations from prior projects to create wetlands. We were arguably a little tardy when we created the 4 acres. Ava and I are both smirking because I think we're about 2 decades tardy. The permit didn't say how soon you had to do it, but we ultimately complied, but we need to make sure it's implemented. Long term, we have the opportunity to create a much larger wetland at the entire site, but we're saving that because we'll want to use that when we expand Larkspur. We are going through an environmental process to expand the 42 trips a day, because while today we're not where we were pre-pandemic, if the Bay Area is going to add 1 million people and 1 million jobs in the next 10 years, we have to plan for the future. So we will ultimately build that all out. When it's all built out of wetland, then we will have the opportunity to try to do what we did with the original 450 acres that we gave to State Fish and Game. Now called Fish and Wildlife.
Thanks
for asking that question.
Great.
It's fascinating.
Good. Any other questions or concerns? Stories about goats? Okay, that concludes our discussion on item number 4. Thank you, Ava. But before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
Just seeing we have no speakers in the room. Do you have any speakers on the line for this item? Item number 4.
We do not. Thank you.
Great. Colleagues, may I have a motion on agenda item number 4 of approval relative to professional services agreement number 2014 FT13?
So moved.
Thank you, David. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jerry. Madam Secretary, please a roll call vote.
All right, with the first and second on item number 4, starting with Director Conroy, who's absent, Dorsey's absent, and Guardio's absent. Garbarina,
Aye.
Giudice,
Yes.
Roseball,
I have a rule that whenever the word invasive is used, I'm going to vote yes.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Maston. Molson Peters is absent. Parr.
I,
Rabbit.
Aye.
Rodoni.
Aye.
Safai is absent. Snyder.
Aye.
Stephanie is absent. Beer. Recusal.
Recuse myself, yes.
Second Vice President Hill is absent. First Vice President Cochran
Yes.
and President Terrio.
Yes, and thank you to Director Parr for the question.
Thank you. You have a lot of
Sounds
names.
Okay. Great, that motion passes. We will continue on to item number 5, which is an informational monthly report from board appointees of the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Board. And I'll start off the report by thanking Amaret for having put on that item the 3 links to the last 3 meetings that we had so that you don't have to suffer through me flapping them in the air. And I'm going to turn this now over to my colleagues Barb and David to speak to the enthusiasm with which we feel about how SMART is coming back in terms of its ridership. You can't help but think the little train that could, right? And that's what it is. So do you guys have anything to?
I do. I just happen to have a few notes here.
Sorry.
I'll start with the ridership. It's up 121% over June of 2019. That's pre-pandemic. So we think that's pretty exciting. We still, aren't as robust as the Golden Gate Bridge Transit in Marin County, but we're working on the monthly ridership. The numbers are 66,261 in July, which sounds like a lot when you're talking about a commuter train. Like I said, it pales with the Golden Gate Bridge, but we're really proud of that. Eddie also did another way of looking at our passenger count, and he looked at passenger miles, like how many passenger miles do people spend on SMART? And that was very, very impressive. SMART has 1.4 million passenger miles just this year, which is a lot of miles. That's a lot of people not on the road. It's a lot of cars that are parked in people's driveways instead of driving around. Have any of you heard about the Date Night Express? We have a fun thing. Yes, if you happen to live in the corridor and like to take your significant other on a date or like to send your kids on a date, we get about 80 every night that we do on it. We run it Friday night and Saturday night. It goes from Santa Rosa to Larkspur, and it's fancy. Everyone's happy and there's wine flowing. Anyway, it's wonderful. The part I really, and I'm sorry Bert isn't here because Bert is in conversation with me often about this. This is our new Smart Connect bus. It's not self-driving, but it is an electric bus. It goes from the Sonoma County Airport to the surrounding areas. You can get it either by directly dialing it. There's a number you can call, or you can just walk up and get on. The numbers I think are impressive. It's only been in business maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and we get 9 a day, which is a lot because we're still in the phase where we're trying to advertise and make sure everyone knows about it. I asked Comrade if she could flash the map, and then I realized that there isn't any place to flash it. So let me see if I can just conceptualize the map. During the week, it goes from the Sonoma County Airport to the surrounding area, which is probably a radius of, 3 or 4 miles. On the weekends, it expands it and goes out to almost all of the wineries within I would say 10-mile radius. And so as soon as it catches on, we're going to have to figure out how to add more, I think, because it's quite successful. I think what we need to work on now is to make sure that it gets advertised appropriately. We're working with the airport to make sure that there's signage, so when people get off the airplanes, they'll know that this exists and how to do it. I'll send this around. We're pretty proud of it. It's orange. I said, I can't believe it's not green, because green's our color, but it's orange. Anyway, 23% of the people that ride it pre-book it, and 76% are on demand. So we need to make sure that the signage is good at the airport. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb.
Is that what you're spending?
David?
40?
David,
David
can
was
you?
MIA, but he probably
Just the
knows.
airport? Just-
Well, then we'll just keep moving on.
He's
It's all
MIA.
good.
was asking me about the Santa Rosa Airport, and there was an
Oh.
article in today's paper regarding the new grand opening
Right.
Oh,
of the
good.
front entry. Very proud of the airport in terms of its recovery, and it's been very successful. So this particular shuttle will connect Smart to the airport. I'm flying to Portland at the end of the month, and hopefully we'll be using that, the combination of the two myself. But it is all working very well together, and we're very proud of that. I
We're
look forward to the
excited to see
future.
what happens on the weekend. You know, if that the expanded trips to the winery make a difference. I mean, that really isn't our mission, but it really is if we can get people off the streets and into places that.
I think it's the first foray into that first last mile micro transit. Who knows, ultimately driverless, where that'll all end up, but we seem to be moving in that direction. And I think for a fixed rail system like Smart, it'll be very beneficial.
Well, wonderful. I can't help but make a comment, though. This wonderful gentleman to my right, I believe, has a very healthy sense of competition. And I pick up his vibe about talking so positively about Smart, which is all good. But how many of you have seen or wish they could see that phenomenal KQED presentation?
Oh, yeah,
It-
It was fabulous.
It was fabulous, Dennis. You were so great.
Yep.
Yeah, and you look good too. It was. I taped it, so wish I could send the tape. Anyway, we've-
I've been sending the link to everybody.
oh, you do?
Yeah,
Oh,
I shared
send it
it
to
on
me
Facebook.
then, because
Yeah,
I would
I
like
will.
to share. And
I actually might use it in some of my trainings. It's such a great tie into high-speed rail and the vision of being able to do big things and
Absolutely.
all this that we're trying to do. That it's
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
I'll give you my whatever contact. All good. Okay. So there's no action on this item unless anybody has any questions or comments. But before we move on, is there anyone who wishes to speak to us about item number 5?
Justine, do you have anyone on the line who'd like to speak on item 5?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, great. we've wooed them. So we'll continue on to item number 6 now, the status report on engineering projects, which begin on page 21 of our report, and Ava will present. Please
Madam
go
Chair,
right
members of the committee, my
Madam Chair.
written report is before you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Questions of Ava, colleagues? No, that was pretty conclusive then. That's great. There's no action, obviously, that's associated with this item. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on item number 6? Or address our committee on item number 7 under public comment?
I do not have anyone in the room. Justine, do you have anyone speaking for item 6 or 7 public comment?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. We've reached the end of the agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you. Second, thank you, Dennis. All good, everybody. Holly. Hearing no objections, that concludes the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee. Thank you all. The time is 9:42, and thanks especially to Amaret, who deserves so much credit for everything, but especially the script. So with that, we'll take a mini break, I believe, and I trade places with David. Is that right? So there'll be
That's
a
correct.
woman on this side of the room. Something happened over here. Great.
All right, we'll start finance at 9:50. Give everybody a second to switch around.